Hi everyone. So tonight I thought we would go to the Beginner's Bible. It's one of my favorites. And we're going to start on page 168. And the story is called A Good Heart. Saul was a good king for about 20 years. Then he began to disobey God. God was sorry he made Saul the king. Saul was also sad about it. God sent Samuel to a man named Jesse to find a new king. Then Samuel met Jesse. He said, "I would like to meet your sons." When Samuel saw them, he thought, "These are the strong-looking men." God said, "I do not look at the outside of a person. I look at the inside of a person. I look at their heart." Samuel asked Jesse, "Do you have another son?" Jesse said, "Yes, his name is David. He is out in the field with his sheep." Samuel asked to see him. As soon as David arrived, God told Samuel, "He is the one. I want to be the next king." Samuel anointed David. He poured oil on David's head, and David was filled with God's power. The next one is going to be about David and Goliath. The Philistines were enemies of God. Their army came to fight King Saul's army. A giant soldier named Goliath yelled, "Bring out the best soldier to fight me." Look how big he is there. "If your strongest soldier defeats me, we will be your slaves," he boomed. "If I defeat him, you will be our slaves." King Saul's soldiers were afraid. They did not want to fight the giant. Meanwhile, young David was taking food to his brothers. They were soldiers in King Saul's army. When David reached the camp, he saw Goliath. David heard the giant's challenge. "I am not afraid to fight the giant," said David. King Saul called for David and told him, "You cannot fight the giant. You are too young." David replied, "God will be with me." King Saul gave his armor to David, but it was big and heavy. David wasn't used to wearing armor. Look how big the armor is on David because David is so small. What do you think's going to happen? We got this tall giant, and look at little David. David went to a nearby stream and picked up 5 stones. He stood before Goliath. The giant laughed at him, but David didn't care. He said, "I come before you in the name of the Lord who rules over all." David put a stone in his sling and ran toward the giant. Then he let the stone fly. It hit Goliath's forehead and he fell to the ground. The Philistines saw that his hero was dead, and they ran away. Best friends. King Saul became grumpy. His servants asked David to play his harp for the king. The music cheered him up, so the king invited David to live in his palace. David became friends with King Saul's son, Prince Jonathan, and Jonathan's sister Michal. David won many battles for the king. The people said David was a better fighter than the king. This made King Saul very angry and jealous. Everyone likes David more than me, he thought. King Saul became so angry that he threw a spear at David, but David escaped. Then one day, Prince Jonathan warned David, "You must run far away. They promised to always be your friends." That's nice that they'll be friends. Oh, here's the time when David's a little bit older and he's going to be king now. King David. Saul chased David, but he never caught him. God watched over David. Then one day, David heard some sad news. King Saul and Prince Jonathan had died in a battle. The people remembered that God had told them that they went to find David. "David, you are now our king," they explained. King David ruled over Israel for 40 years. He wrote many songs about God called Psalms. He even had plans to build a temple for God. David was a man who was dear to God's heart. When King David was old, he told his son Solomon, "You will be the next king of Israel. Be strong and obey God with all your heart. Then he will bless you." All right, we're going to read one more. This one is called "The Lord is My Shepherd." This is one of David's songs about God. "The Lord is my shepherd. He gives me everything I need. He lets me lie down in fields of green grass. He leads me beside quiet waters. He gives me new strength. He guides me in the right paths for the honor of his name. Even though I walk in the darkest valley, I will not be afraid. You, God, are with me. Your shepherd's rod and staff comfort me." You prepare a feast for me right in front of my enemies. You pour oil on my head. My cup runs over. I am sure that your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. That David was a good writer, huh? So, I want to thank all of you that came out to do the crop walk with us this morning. We had a good time walking around the common and bringing awareness about food insecurity in our area. So I am thankful that you all came out. If you haven't had a chance to come out yet to Sunday school, I hope that you will in the next few weeks when we are still gathered outside. You could bring out a sweatshirt or a jacket, and it's beautiful outside. So I hope to see you next Sunday. And until then, have a nice week. Peace be with you.